issue for local leaders. And today we sat down for an exclusive interview with Las Vegas Mayor Shelley Berkeley.
So she told us they need to get people off our streets and into self-sustaining situations.
Visitors come to Las Vegas expecting fun, neon lights, and endless entertainment. Now, in 2026, growing homelessness is changing the city's face. People are living on sidewalks, encampments are visible everywhere, and shelters cannot keep up. What's causing this crisis? How will it affect your trip? Join us as we uncover the truth behind the streets of Sin City, a city built on dreams now facing a harsh reality. Las Vegas has a reputation most places only wish they had: the bright lights, the loud music, the promise of winning big or just having a good time. Tourists walk down main streets flanked by massive glowing signs and feel like they have stepped into a dream world. People plan trips for years to come here. They imagine late nights in busy casinos, world-class shows, cheap food by day, and bucket drinks by night. That image, for decades, has been one of the city's biggest strengths. But if you step off the main strip, if you look around beyond the flashy towers, you begin to notice something that many tourists never used to see. Gradually, more and more people who do not have a home have started appearing in public places where visitors walk every day. It is not hidden off in the distance. It is something that affects the real look and feel of the city. For the millions of people who come to Las Vegas hoping for excitement and fun, this sight can be startling and upsetting. In the wider region known as Southern Nevada, which includes Las Vegas and its suburbs, the number of people without stable housing has grown sharply. During an official count at the beginning of 2024, volunteers found that almost 8,000 people were experiencing homelessness. That was a big jump from the year before, close to a full 20% increase compared with earlier data. These figures represent the highest total reported in more than 10 years. Every year, local groups go out on a single day to count how many people are homeless, both in shelters and on the streets, and this increase caught many people off guard. Something important to understand is that the total number includes two groups. One is people who are sheltered, which means they are in emergency housing, transitional shelters, or other temporary programs. The other is unsheltered people, meaning they sleep outside in public spaces, parks, under bridges, on sidewalks, in vehicles, or in makeshift camps. In 2024, the count showed that more than 4,000 of the almost 8,000 homeless people were unsheltered, meaning they were literally on the streets or in places not meant for living. That picture of people sleeping outside or in unprotected areas is not evenly spread across the city.
It gets cold as hell. Like, I almost froze to death last winter in Vegas because I fell asleep outside with no jacket on and it dropped to whatever it dropped to in summer.
Many of these encampments and clusters of unhoused people are found in neighborhoods and public spaces that many tourists may travel through after leaving McCarran Airport, visiting downtown, or taking ride shares to off-strip hotels and attractions. Some of these are along major roads, near freeway ramps, in underpasses, and around parks or shopping areas. These are not hidden in the desert far from where people visit. Many are simply right where life happens. Locals and business owners have noticed them too, saying that what used to be rare sightings have become much more common over recent years. For visitors who picture Las Vegas as only bright lights and fun, this new reality can feel unexpected. It does more than change the backdrop of the city. It changes the way a person feels walking down a street. It changes the mood of a vacation. It changes the sense of safety, comfort, and excitement that brought people to Las Vegas in the first place. Visitors who arrive in the city look forward to scenery that feels active and welcoming. When instead they see someone without shelter on a sidewalk near their hotel or right outside a bus stop, it can be jarring. This is not something tourists can ignore. It enters into their experience quickly. When someone steps out of a taxi or rideshare near their hotel and sees a group of unhoused people on a corner, that moment becomes part of their memory of the trip. When someone walks to a restaurant off the strip and notices tents under a bridge along their route, those impressions stick. And when these sights are repeated, not just one time, but multiple times in a single visit, it affects people's opinions of the city itself. But numbers only scratch the surface. To truly understand what this means for visitors, we need to know why all this is happening. And that starts with the human forces creating this crisis. What's driving Las Vegas's homelessness boom in 2026? The perfect storm: economy, housing, and climate. The rise in homelessness in Las Vegas is not happening for just one reason. It is a combination of problems coming together, a perfect storm that is pushing more people into the streets than ever before. To understand the crisis in 2026, it is important to look at four main forces: housing, wages, climate, and government support. First, housing is the biggest issue. Las Vegas and the surrounding areas of southern Nevada have one of the worst shortages of affordable housing in the entire country. For every 100 households that need an affordable rental, there are fewer than 17 units available. That means many people, even those who work full-time, cannot find a place they can afford. Families, young adults, and older residents who are barely scraping by are often forced to choose between paying rent and paying for food or utilities. When they cannot find a home, the street becomes the only option. This shortage is not only due to high demand, but also because new housing is often too expensive to meet the needs of low-income residents. Even new apartments built in recent years are priced far above what most working people can afford. Wages are another critical factor. While housing costs have gone up quickly, wages have not kept pace. Many people work in service industries such as restaurants, hotels, and retail, or in construction and transportation jobs. Even with full-time work, they often cannot cover rent, food, healthcare, and basic living expenses. Evictions have risen as a result, leaving more people without shelter. With rising rent and limited income growth, more households are facing housing insecurity than ever before. Evictions not only create immediate homelessness, but also make it harder for people to return to stable housing later, because their rental history is affected. This cycle continues to push people into shelters and onto the streets, increasing the visible homeless population across the city. Climate is a force that makes homelessness especially dangerous in Las Vegas. Summers are extremely hot, often reaching over 110 degrees Fahrenheit, and can be deadly for people without proper shelter, water, and air conditioning. Heat stroke, dehydration, and other health emergencies are a constant threat. Winter temperatures can also drop into the 30s, creating exposure risks for those living outside. Local shelters and services often cannot keep up with the health needs of the unsheltered population during these extreme conditions. Every year, hospitals and emergency responders see spikes in cases linked directly to weather stress among people without homes. For tourists, the heat is part of the city's image, but for the homeless, it is a serious life threat. This contrast shows how extreme climate interacts with economic issues to worsen the crisis. The fourth major factor is government support. Federal and local funding for housing and services has changed in ways that make it harder to help people quickly. Some federal funding rules have shifted, and budgets have been reduced for essential programs. These cuts mean fewer shelters, fewer rapid rehousing options, and fewer mental health and addiction services for those in need. Nonprofit organizations and city programs struggle to cover the gaps, which leaves more people living outside. The lack of resources directly affects both the sheltered and unsheltered populations. While nonprofits and volunteers work hard to provide meals, hygiene, and temporary shelter, the scale of the crisis is far beyond what these efforts can fully solve. These factors together create a storm where even people who work hard cannot keep up. Entire families, single parents, older adults, and young people just starting out are being pushed into the street. With all these factors in play, the next question becomes clear. This crisis is changing life in Las Vegas in ways that affect residents and visitors alike. How does it affect the city's streets, the economy, and the experience of tourists who come expecting the classic Las Vegas magic? That is what we explore in the next chapter. A tourist city meets an urban crisis. Las Vegas has always been known for its bright lights, endless energy, and experiences that feel larger than life. Visitors come expecting escape, excitement, and fun. But what many tourists are actually seeing now is something very different. The growing presence of homelessness is changing the city's look and feel in ways that cannot be ignored. The reality is visible not just in statistics, but in the spaces people move through every day. The first thing visitors notice is the visual reality of homelessness. Encampments are appearing near major intersections where buses drop off passengers and taxis wait to pick up riders. Tents, makeshift shelters, and personal belongings are sometimes clustered in open areas just a block away from hotels or even near certain casinos. Some public parks have become temporary homes for dozens of people, and small clusters appear along sidewalks or under freeway overpasses. Visitors who once saw only clean streets, fountains, and polished walkways now notice the presence of people living outdoors. These visuals are impossible to ignore because they are part of the everyday landscape. Transit stops, where tourists expect to wait for buses or ride shares, and are often areas where people without shelter gather. Lines for buses can include individuals with carts full of belongings. Airports and taxi pickup points are also seeing more unhoused residents. For tourists, these places are part of their first impressions and last goodbyes. When someone sees someone living in a tent or asking for help while they're carrying luggage, it changes the tone of the experience. Tourists are reporting emotional encounters that go beyond simply noticing tents or clusters. Some describe feeling uneasy when people approach, asking for assistance, while others talk about the emotional weight of simply witnessing someone living on the sidewalk in extreme heat or cold. Even if no one is aggressive or confrontational, the reality of human struggle is stark. This can create a sense of discomfort, sadness, or even guilt, which contrasts sharply with the entertainment and excitement visitors expect from Las Vegas. It is a visual and emotional clash between expectation and reality. The contrast is most striking when comparing the famous Strip with other areas where life is far harsher. Tourists might spend a few hours on the Strip, surrounded by towering hotels, bright neon lights, and performers in costumes. A few blocks away, the scene can be drastically different, with visible homelessness shaping the streetscape. This disconnect between expectations and experience creates cognitive dissonance for visitors. They may start to feel unsafe, even if local crime statistics are stable, simply because the urban environment is no longer purely entertaining or sanitized. Tourist psychology plays a major role in how these experiences are processed. People come to Las Vegas for escapism. They expect a city that removes the worries of the everyday world. Seeing economic struggle and human suffering instead of neon lights and excitement challenges that sense of escape. When the brain interprets visible homelessness as a threat or as an emotional burden, even small interactions can have a big impact on overall enjoyment.
Streets, difficult challenge for everybody involved, but I think we need to get a handle on this issue before it gets any worse in the city.
Tourists often report that their emotional comfort is affected more than their physical safety. Simply being reminded that some people are struggling deeply in a city built on wealth and entertainment is enough to change the tone of a trip. Even small encounters add up. Walking past an encampment, waiting near a bus stop, or seeing people with no access to basic hygiene services can make tourists pause, look away, or even avoid certain areas. Seeing is one thing, but what about how local policies and enforcement are responding or failing to respond to this crisis? That's where the story gets even more complicated. What the city is doing and not doing. Las Vegas has a long history of addressing challenges in ways that are often reactive rather than proactive. Homelessness is no exception. The city is now facing a visible crisis that affects everyone, from residents to tourists. Government leaders, nonprofits, and community organizations are all trying to respond, but the solutions are complicated, expensive, and sometimes controversial. City leadership has focused on creating long-term strategies to reduce homelessness, rather than simply moving people out of sight. Planning now includes programs to provide housing, health services, and support for mental health and substance misuse. Officials recognize that simply clearing tents or forcing people into temporary shelters does not solve the underlying problems. The goal is to develop pathways off the streets and into stable living arrangements. This includes connecting people to permanent housing, job training, and social support. One major challenge is funding. Both federal and local dollars are limited, and budget reductions in certain areas make long-term solutions difficult to implement. While there is some federal support for housing initiatives, competition for these funds is high, and requirements for eligibility can be strict. Local governments often struggle to fill the gaps left by federal programs. Nonprofit organizations step in, but they rely heavily on donations and volunteers, which cannot always meet demand. As a result, even well-planned projects can move slowly and serve fewer people than needed. Some of the most ambitious plans include large multi-service facilities designed to provide housing, healthcare, and social services in one location. One example is the planned Campus for Hope, a facility that aims to consolidate multiple services for people experiencing homelessness. This type of approach is intended to address both immediate needs and long-term stability. creating a bridge from the streets into sustainable living. These facilities also attempt to offer a sense of community, which is important for people who have been isolated for months or years. Youth homelessness has also become a focus. The city has held summits and built partnerships to develop frameworks for helping young people, who often face unique challenges such as aging out of foster care, lack of family support, and vulnerability to exploitation. Programs targeting youth aim to provide safe housing, educational opportunities, and counseling to prevent long-term cycles of homelessness. These initiatives are important for protecting younger residents and preventing future growth of the homeless population. Despite these efforts, critics point out that many policies may be more cosmetic than effective. Some programs focus on relocating homeless individuals to other neighborhoods or temporary shelters rather than providing permanent housing. Others involve enforcement strategies that move people out of public view, making the streets appear cleaner without reducing the actual number of people without homes. Critics warn that this approach does not solve the problem and may only create new tensions in surrounding areas. On the other hand, advocates argue that the city is making progress. Nonprofit organizations report that more people are receiving access to healthcare, counseling, and shelter than ever before. Collaborative efforts between government, business, and community organizations are beginning to create a more structured system for addressing homelessness. While challenges remain, these advocates see a path forward through coordinated services, funding, and community engagement. But policy solutions aren't just political. They ripple through the economy and everyday life. So, what real economic impacts is this crisis having on Las Vegas's tourism industry? That is the next story to unfold. The collateral damage, tourism and local economy. Las Vegas is a city built on tourism. The hotels, casinos, restaurants, shows, and attractions rely almost entirely on visitors spending money. But the growing homelessness crisis is creating ripple effects that are changing the economic picture of the city. In 2025, tourism already showed signs of slowing down. Officials had hoped for a rebound in 2026, but uncertainty about the city's streets, public spaces, and visitor experience is creating concerns. Tourists notice more than just lights and entertainment. The visible presence of homelessness can affect how comfortable visitors feel, especially when walking to attractions, taking taxis, or using public transit. While crime rates may not have risen dramatically, seeing people living on sidewalks, in encampments, or near transit hubs can make visitors hesitate, slow down, or avoid certain areas entirely. That hesitation directly affects spending. If visitors choose not to walk to restaurants or shops near the Strip, the small businesses in these areas see less revenue. Labor shortages in hospitality amplify the problem. Many hotels and restaurants struggle to hire enough staff, partly because housing costs are rising faster than wages. People who might otherwise work in hotels, casinos, or restaurants cannot afford to live nearby and either leave Las Vegas or take multiple jobs just to cover rent. This shortage affects service quality, wait times, and overall tourist satisfaction. Tourists may notice slower check-ins, longer waits for meals, or fewer entertainment options during peak hours, all of which can impact their perception of the city. Small businesses face a double challenge. They depend heavily on tourist spending, but many of their employees are also experiencing housing pressures. Cafes, shops, and entertainment venues are caught in a cycle. Fewer visitors mean lower revenue, but workers still need to cover rising rent, transportation, and living costs. Some businesses have reduced hours or staffing, while others are considering relocation to areas where employees can afford to live. This dynamic creates economic strain that spreads throughout the city, not just on the Strip, but in surrounding neighborhoods as well. So, if this is such a serious problem with wide effects, the final big question becomes, is this a temporary disruption or a new normal for Las Vegas in 2026? That is the tipping point we explore next. Can Las Vegas reinvent itself? Las Vegas stands at a crossroads. On one side is the city built on wonder, lights, and endless entertainment. On the other side is the reality of a growing homelessness crisis, rising housing costs, and economic strain on both residents and the tourism industry. 2026 could be a turning point. The question is whether the city can reinvent itself while maintaining the magic that drew millions of visitors for decades. The best case strategies focus on long-term solutions that address root causes. Investments in affordable housing are critical. More units designed for families, low-income workers, and vulnerable populations can reduce pressure on the streets and shelters. Expanding treatment-first approaches is also essential. Programs that provide mental health care, addiction treatment, and supportive services help people move into stable housing and maintain it. Combining housing with wraparound services creates lasting solutions instead of temporary fixes. Community engagement is another key part of reinvention. Local organizations, nonprofits, businesses, and volunteers are essential for creating a coordinated network of support. Collaboration can improve efficiency, connect people to resources faster, and ensure programs reach the right populations. Without this cooperation, even well-funded initiatives can fail because they are not connected to the daily realities of people experiencing homelessness. However, obstacles are significant. Funding limitations remain a major challenge. Building affordable housing, expanding shelters, and supporting treatment programs require money that is often limited or inconsistent. Political division adds another layer of complexity. Different leaders and agencies may prioritize tourism, business interests, or social services differently, making it hard to implement cohesive strategies. Economic pressures, including rising costs for construction, labor, and city services, further constrain what can be done. Climate extremes also play a role. Las Vegas's intense summer heat makes outdoor living dangerous and adds urgency to housing and shelter programs, but it also increases operating costs for cooling, water, and emergency services. Messaging is another challenge for the city. Las Vegas must balance promoting tourism while being honest about its homelessness crisis. This is difficult because no major tourist city wants to highlight visible poverty or human suffering as part of its marketing. Yet, ignoring the issue risks damaging trust with visitors who notice and remember what they see. Transparency about initiatives, success stories, and progress can help, but messaging must be realistic. Over-promising solutions that are slow to materialize can create disappointment or even public backlash. For tourists, the implications are significant. Visitors may need to adjust expectations and plan for the reality of the city. That could mean choosing hotels or restaurants in areas where homelessness is less visible, using guided transportation instead of walking through certain districts, or being prepared for the emotional impact of seeing people in crisis. Returning visitors may notice differences from past trips, including new shelters, outreach services, or policy changes. How the city handles this visibility will shape both perception and experience. At the same time, Las Vegas has an opportunity. If strategies are implemented effectively, the city could improve conditions for residents, support workers, and create a more sustainable tourism economy. Investments in housing and services can reduce street homelessness, improve safety and comfort, and strengthen the city's reputation. For businesses, a healthier, more stable workforce benefits service quality and overall economic performance. For tourists, it restores the sense of escape, excitement, and fun that is central to Las Vegas's appeal.